And so Nicholas from Iowa State asked, Schitt's Creek is a really important show for LGBTQ representation. So what was your motivation for creating a show in a universe that's so affirming for queerness?
Well, I think I touched a little bit on it earlier. I think when you don't get to see yourself represented a lot in movies or TV shows, or when the only time that you get to see yourself represented is kind of the story is othered in some way, it just makes, when you get the opportunity to tell a story yourself, it just makes you want to seize that opportunity and to tell stories that you want to see. And in my case, I wanted to see um, a love story that wasn't met with tragedy. I wanted to see two people fall in love with the same kind of casual ease that two straight people fall in love on television. I wanted to see a love story that was just as casual as, Ross and Rachel. And so that's what I set out to do. And you realize sometimes when you do that, just how few and far between those stories actually are, because I was able to hear from so many people who were so grateful for that story. And while that is a compliment, it also makes me wonder, like, gosh, we don't have enough. We need more. We need more people to tell stories about their experiences so that, you know, me telling like a funny little love story doesn't have to feel revolutionary, because it's not. It's simply just telling a story. But until that day comes, it's about encouraging people and making space for people um to tell stories that are not necessarily seen every day on television. So that was my philosophy. And I think when you see the ripple effects, how positive that can be, and how much it can affect the community, it only makes you want to continue to do it. So it's definitely going to be something that I explore in everything that I make moving forward.
It is indeed a very beautiful thing. Terry asks, what led you to share your story and
On the one hand, I don't feel entirely qualified to answer that, but on the other hand, I will say this, like, it's a tough thing to struggle with anxiety. I'm very lucky to have a really wonderful support system of people who I was able to turn to and talk to. Um, and I was also able to work through it. I had the strength to work through it, and a lot of people don't. I was able to recognize that if I didn't change some things about myself, I probably wouldn't get to where I wanted to go. But I was lucky enough to have the ability to recognize that and the strength to change it. And some people don't have that, and that's fine. And those are the people that we really need to look out for, because um, they need a little bit more help, whether it's someone to talk to in a professional setting, or someone to talk to just as in a social way. But that goes back to the conversation I was having about just being kinder to one another. I think the reality is we don't know what we're all going through, and sometimes just the smallest act of kindness, or a phone call to a friend or a family member, um, checking in, is really helpful. And sometimes it's just as easy as that. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it requires a little bit more. But I think the more we destigmatize the idea that mental health should be something we have to internalize and not talk about, the more we're going to be able to see people sharing their struggles in a way that hopefully will facilitate help. Um, so we just got to talk about it more, um, and be more open about it, because that's a way through for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Switching gears a bit, Caitlin from UNI asks, Vogue wrote an article about your fashion choice for the Golden Globes this February. How did you go about choosing your yellow Valentino suit for this event? And what inspires you to be fashionable, especially during this pandemic?
Um, well, I've always loved fashion. I've always loved playing around with clothes. I've always loved expressing myself through clothes. And I think when you have the opportunity to have wonderful designers want to share their clothes with you, it just makes the experience that much more fun. And so for me, to get to go to these award shows, like that's surreal in and of itself. Um, but my philosophy is, if I'm going to go and show up, let's celebrate, and let's celebrate in something other than a black suit. Let's try and have fun with it, and push the sort of boundaries of what men's fashion can be in a formal capacity. So I'm always just out there trying to have some fun.
That suit was one of my favorites. Back into writing a little, Max from Iowa State asks, do you have any tactics or things that you do to help you when you get writer's block?
Yeah, walk away. That might not be everyone's tactic, but I tend to, like, when I get really stuck, sometimes you gotta just walk away, call it a day. Or if you're on a deadline, put your pen down, close your laptop, walk around the block, put on music that inspires you, just clear your head. Because I think sometimes part of the struggle of writer's block is just that our minds get so stuck on trying to solve a problem that it just needs a little detangling. So I would just say, give it a minute. Don't push yourself. Try and be kind to yourself through the writing process. And if something's not working, give it a beat. Come back to it a little bit later, hopefully with a fresh set of eyes. And more often than not, that's helped me kind of detangle whatever I was struggling with.
Thank you for that insight. Chris asks, what experiences in school helped you prepare for your career?
Well, I think about, I mean, teachers are the most crucial people in our lives. I think they have the ability to completely change the trajectory of our lives, and they obviously need more recognition in this world. My earliest memory of kind of a teacher affecting a kind of positive change in me was in high school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was obviously not my best self. I was anxious. It was a mess. But I had one English teacher who recognized something in my writing and made a point in front of the whole class of using something I had written as an example of how it's good to think outside the box. And for me, I always struggled in school because I found school to be very by the book. If you don't do things exactly as is expected, you are somehow not as good as the students who do. And my mind has always been a little bit more creative. I tend to color outside the lines. I tend to be a little bit more abstract in the way that I think. And so to have a teacher read something that I've written, in my case, I didn't do a book report. I wrote a poem in exchange for this book report about the book. So instead of doing a conventional book report, I kind of expressed myself in a different way, knowing it was going to be a huge risk and I could have failed the exam or whatever it was, the test. But for a teacher to recognize unconventional thinking and to say you're on to something, keep going, really, that was a game changer for me, because I felt seen by an elder for the first time, and I was encouraged to pursue something that in my mind I didn't even know I was very good at. So teachers, I think, are so crucial in those early days of helping us shape and define and explore what it is we want to do and what it is we want to say. So I don't know if that was really answering your question, but there we are.
Thanks, Dan. Sarah from UNI asks, having watched Schitt's Creek in its entirety several times, I continue to be influenced by its social justice subtleties that present a culture of inclusion, acceptance, and equity amongst family and community systems on the show. Was this an intended outcome for writing the show? or an unexpected happy result or happy ending, if you will, of the writing?
I think it's a bit of both. We set out to tell the story, obviously, of our family, but we also set out to tell the story of a small town. And I think so many times in the past, when it came to film or television, small town life, small town people were often reduced to caricatures. They weren't depicted to be as culturally aware or or smart as the big city people. And we really wanted to run in the opposite direction and make the town a place that was a safe haven, a place that was going to teach this family, this very wealthy family who thought they had everything, teach them that they actually know nothing. And when we made the choice to make this town a place that was progressive in its thinking, inclusive in its action, um, I took it one step further and I'm saying, okay, well, if we're going to go down this path with this town, what would happen if we just eliminated homophobia, bigotry, or intolerance of any kind? What would happen if we started to tell the story of a town where that simply didn't exist? And on the one hand, you're taking a risk because you are telling us it's not real. It's not what happens in real life. But our hope was, if we were to paint a picture of a world that is kinder, gentler, more supportive, more encouraging, maybe that would make the viewer at home ask themselves, why am I harboring so much judgment? Why am I harboring so much resentment? It allowed us to sort of hold a mirror up to other people's experiences. And the results, as I've said, were quite profound in being able to see what that did. People were able to watch a family grow and support each other. And that came from total acceptance. And so, you know, in a way, it kind of offered an aspirational quality that I think inspired people to try and be better, you know, relatives or family members or friends or people in general.
Great answer. Elizabeth from Iowa State asked, is there a particular episode that you feel represents the core of the show?
Well, I guess the very last episode of the show, I think, is probably the clearest representation of the show. It's all about love. It's all about you know people growing, the effects of being able to grow in a really healthy environment, and what can happen when we really encourage each other to be better. So I guess I would go with the last episode.
And it was a beautiful, beautiful episode. In this day and age, it's really easy to compare ourselves to each other. So in such a subjective industry, what did it take for you to achieve to sound like you found your success?
I think it's been the choice to not compare, because I think the minute we start looking to our left and to our right, and that's when we get in our way. It doesn't matter what anybody else around you is doing. You're never going to have the same trajectory as someone else. So someone might become successful before you, someone might get a job that you wanted, someone might succeed in a way that you hope to succeed yourself. That doesn't mean that you are not also going to succeed. It simply means that someone's path might be slightly more expedited than yours. So for me, I try my best not to compare myself or look at my peers and say, well, why am I not doing X, Y, and Z? At the end of the day, we have to be kind of kinder to ourselves. And comparison is a really toxic thing. So, I try to just stay focused on what I want to do and what I want to say with what I've been given, and hope that that's enough.
Thanks, Dan. So, final question of the night. Is there anything that you would do differently knowing what you know now?
I mean, in retrospect, I think I would have as a teenager, I probably would have been less scared. But at the same time, I think I don't know if I would have gotten here if anything had changed. So on the one hand, you don't necessarily want to butterfly affect your past, but you know, I I I wish that I could maybe go back and have a better time in high school, be a little bit more self-assured.
Well, you're certainly self-assured now, and we really appreciate you coming out tonight, Dan, to Iowa virtually. We're really happy that you could make it, and we hope you come in person sometime. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks everybody, and thanks for tuning in tonight. It was a wonderful chat. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, we especially appreciate everybody who stuck with us tonight. We had a few technical issues along the way, and if you're still here, you made it and you did it, and we're so glad that you were able to join us. I'm going to close us out. We just have a few comments from each of the universities. And Dan, thanks your joyful presence and your fun and your insights. You brought a lot to what is a weird time for us here in Iowa, just like it is for